2,190 hours. 2,190 hours. As a measure of time, what else could one do in 2,190 hours? Well, one could drive from Eilat to the Golan almost 300 times. You could drive from New York to Los Angeles more than 50 times. You could read about 200 books. You could go see more than 1,000 movies. You could even binge watch the first 2 seasons of Fauda more than 100 times, and I think I might have even done that. So at a global average of 6 hours a day spent per person on social networking, 2,091 is the total number of hours spent per year per person using social media. So in the course of a lifetime, that totals more than 17 years spent on social networking. More than 17 years. And in Israel, those numbers almost double. In Israel, the national average is 11 hours per day, equating to more than 32 years of a lifetime spent on social media. So given the extraordinary amount of time that we devote to being socially networked, why are we seemingly more disconnected as people than ever? After all, look at the world around us. From tectonic shifts in geopolitics to national discord in a toxic political climate to cultural separation with widening racial disparities and gender divides that continue to open our eyes to gross inequalities. As people, we seem to be more societally disconnected from each other than ever. So what can we as architects and designers do to help address this disconnection? And to that, I'm a believer in people architecture. So what is people architecture? People architecture shifts the focus away from creating shiny objects to a focus on the human experience, to creating great spaces and places for people, spaces that promote connectivity and community, diversity, and elevate experiences. People architecture is an architecture of connection. So there are a series of themes that form the backbone of people architecture. 1, access over ownership. So as you all know, the millennials have changed the game on views of ownership. Rather than placing emphasis on the car that they're gonna buy or the home that they wanna buy, is either by choice or really out of necessity, is millennials place value on access to high quality, unique experiences. And those, in many cases, are shared rather than owned. And they want it when they want it and how they want it, and boy, it better be good. When physical trumps virtual, I believe true human interaction only happens in physical space, and therefore buildings must be about connectivity. As virtual working is today nearly seamless, the office building fundamentally serves as a place for social connection, collaboration, and inspiration. An ecosystem of sustainability. So buildings and spaces offer opportunity to promote, of course, environmental sustainability, but also, importantly, a more holistic form of human sustainability. And that promotes health and wellness and vitality. So how is people architecture translated into physical form? So people architecture is really more about horizontal connected spaces, like on the left, to singular iconic forms on the right. And buildings move from being static and hierarchical in their planning to being dynamic and flexible. Building cores and spatial voids are really major drivers in creating connected spaces. So by pulling the core to the sides, you are able to create a heart for the building, and that serves as a connector. So as you can see in these diagrams, is center building cores of all shapes and sizes, they can limit visibility, they limit connectivity. So to create connected spaces, side cores rule. So for example, as you can see in these diagrams, on the left is in the side core really creates a space of connectivity and connection and uniformity. On the diagram on the right with the center core office configuration really limits visibility and connection. And open spaces that connect both visually and provide physical connection vertically are really, really key. And they can also read on the building facade to reinforce its importance and to give identity. To promote healthy living, buildings can amenitize bicycle parking and showers. They can leverage outdoor space, encourage movement by providing diverse and mixed-use functions, and through technology provide lifetime building performance data to tenants. Again, another benefit of big data is providing access to how we are all going about our lives. So to create connected buildings, some of the key characteristics are side cores rule, what we call fat horizontal buildings with voids are optimal. Really connected ground planes that are activated with diverse programs and bring amenity and importantly choice. And vertical connectivity. So that it is therefore providing physical and visual connections. So connected buildings are also not just a societal good, but they also make for good business. And these are buildings that will be market leaders. They create the most value and tenant demand. So to give a picture of some examples of connected buildings, I wanted to take you on a brief global tour of people architecture that my firm has designed around the world. So from Manhattan to Melbourne, and from Silicon Valley to Shanghai, and from Bombay to Brooklyn, we're going to go on a little journey here. While these projects are programmatically different, and they are geographically diverse, and they all have different scales, they all share a common DNA for connecting people. So we begin the world tour in Australia, and the first stop is the National Australia Bank, which is a 600,000 square foot headquarters building located in the heart of Melbourne. The building houses more than 5,000 workers, and none of which have a dedicated desk. So each morning you come in and you decide where and with who it will be most effective for you to work, and you can move throughout the building really to find what's going to work best for you. So people are connected visually and physically through open spaces, a series of bridges that cross the building. And the design also provides for a really diverse sense of workspaces. And as you know, it's not one size fits all, and different work types require different kinds of functions. And so really providing a broad suite of workspaces is very important. So again, really choice and diversity. There are also a series of hospitality-oriented spaces where you can work, get a change of scenery, sit with friends, enjoy a really good cup of coffee. If you've ever been to Australia, they do have really good coffee. And they're also a series of outdoor spaces to take in the sun, plug in, and provides another important environment for people throughout the day. So next, we're going to go to Sydney, where this is a project for the Macquarie Bank, which is a 400,000 square foot built-to-suit office building. And in this project, the cores, like mentioned earlier, have been shifted to the sides. And what that then does, it really opens up the heart of the building to create a very strong center. So here too, the void space, but importantly filled with vertical connection and horizontal connection. And as was mentioned earlier, the idea of having really chance encounters with friends, with colleagues, is something that therefore happens in this space. So important to note as well is that really culture comes from the top. So at Macquarie, the CEO sat right in the mix. Actually, that table there was where the CEO sat, right in the middle of it all, and that was very deliberate in order to really connect directly with teams. Again, some of the diversity in the work types, all happening, in very close proximity with each other, but again, providing diversity. So next is from Silicon Valley to Singapore. So we do a lot of work with a very large technology company. They'll remain confidential, but let's just say that they are very good at searching. So while the design aesthetic is certainly very playful, these are hardworking spaces, and they're really to drive productivity and business culture. So here too, open spaces, stairs, terrace balconies, these are all connector spaces, but also places to do work. So naturally, as a technology company, it's all very mobile and configured that people can really work anywhere. So therefore, again, these are environments for visual connection, but also places that people can do more private or focused work as well. Some of the integration of hospitality spaces, the kind of food offerings in these facilities are really quite extraordinary. So next we're going to come back to Australia at 1 William Street, and this is in Brisbane. And this is an example of a connected high-rise office building. So this is a 1 million square foot commercial development, and while this building has a center core, what was really done here in order to create connection was carving out a series of atrium spaces, and those are 3-story atrium spaces that run up the full face of the building. And so these provide a series of interconnected stairs. So, and also registers on the facade. And I should say is that in Brisbane is that it's a relatively tight tenant market, and so here the owner developer was very deliberate about designing a building that was going to have appeal in the market. So it was very targeted, and was able to take on very large block user tenant. So we're going to stay in Brisbane here. Really, the sun in Brisbane is quite amazing. So you're able to do a project like this, which is for Suncorp, and this is a large financial services company. And here too is that the developer was very specifically targeting this tenant, and so while financial services, all companies today are really technology companies, and so again, really appealing to those kinds of sensibilities. So here, very much about connecting the building to the street. There's a wonderful series of parks in Brisbane, and so this, in many respects, becomes the building becomes an extension of the park. You could see the kind of porosity that there is through the ground plane here. You know, coming from New York, this is very rare. You know, are you able to create commercial buildings that offer real connection? So it's a quite nice experience to have tenants, clients who are looking to have these kinds of aspirations. But more and more, we are seeing that again, the ideas that are here in Brisbane are also percolate in Brooklyn as well. And so you can see this is actually at the second floor, where it's very hard to distinguish between where the street starts, where the office ends, where the landscape starts. Very integrated. And then also providing at the top of the building this amazing amenity space. And within a commercial development, to allocate the top floor towards a common amenity is really quite special. And again, certainly it's motivated by quality, but it's also motivated by this is what tenants want. And so when out in the market, these are the kinds of buildings that they're going to choose. So another project, this is came to Tel Aviv via Mumbai. We're working on this. So this is a project very much still on the drawing boards, and this is an IT campus. And so here our clients set out to really create a different kind of IT campus, and rather than what is typically a single-use office use, this has really been conceived as an amenity-rich campus with mixed uses. And so that includes food and beverage, it includes retail, and it also includes co-living, which interestingly is a emerging market in India as well. So the planning here has really been to create a mixing bowl of companies to create an ecosystem of both young startups and established companies. And we see a lot of benefits in that, both from the standpoint of really creating a dynamic mix of users, but there's also a lot of business strength in it because the more established companies are developing relationships with younger startups and vice versa. So bringing those kinds of those users together, it from a planning standpoint really creates rich opportunities, but also makes for good business. So here also access to outdoor space, really important, but programmed outdoor space. These are spaces that are not just, yes, they're very nice to look on, but very active, and also places that one could do work during the course of a day. And then this is that integration of retail, food and beverage into the office development. And you can start to see, again, some similar themes around vertical connection, overlooking spaces. And here too, this is an interior street, actually open to the weather, covered above, that also offers this kind of mixing bowl of users, and really, again, amenitizing for the office users. So we're going to move on to New York. This is a project which is called Union Crossing. This is in the Bronx. This was a former factory where they produced machines in order to make candy. Here, the owner really, it happens to be that this building urbanistically is located quite well to transit, has great views out back kind of into Manhattan, and so they looked at repositioning this building. So here as well is very much, the action is at the base of the building. The Bronx is still for any of you who've been there, it's still up and coming, and so certainly security was important, but at the same time wanted to create a building that very much connected with the community as well. So this is a place that the retail is designed for maker spaces above that produce artisanal honey and the like, and can come downstairs and sell it. But interestingly here is that the bike is something. This is the lobby, and actually, again, this is really about understanding who your target market is. So here, bikes are encouraged. In fact, because it was a factory, it had very large freight elevators, and so you're able to basically drive your bike in and up into the freight elevator and up to your unit. So I mean, you can start to see some of the quality of spaces that buildings like this offer when you're able to kind of peel back the layers. And at the ground floor as well is retail that looking for, in this case, kind of visualize for what was hoping to be the home of the Bronx Brewery. So we'll stay tuned on that. And then the rooftop as well. So, rooftops tended to be places that were filled with mechanical spaces and really not seen as adding value. And there's now a great effort to really repurpose these spaces because they generate tremendous value. And so, when tenants are looking for their checklist, this is often very much one of them. There's a project in South Australia for the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute. It's a very special project. This won Lab of the Year a couple years back, and this was a very deliberate effort by the municipality to create this building, which was a connector. And so because of changes in loss in manufacturing, this piece of the city had really become, had lost its vitality. And so this was intended to really bring together industry as well as research, and therefore becomes an incubator. As part of the urban design, the building is conceptually lifted off the ground and really provides a gateway, and the planning of this really was, again, designed around creating connection between research and industry. Very often there's not only is there a cultural divide, but there's a very strong physical divide between those. And so this was then designed to really integrate those. It was designed to put science on display where it is always part of the culture. Again, some of the spaces, this one, as architects, often we interestingly take pictures without people in them, but is really a connector of people. So coming back for me a little bit closer to home is a project that we did at Cornell University. And this is a fun project. It was with the School of Hospitality. And so This was what was the former library of the School of Hospitality. Like many libraries, it was filled with stacks and books and not really reflecting the kind of realities of students today who are really getting everything on their laptops. So the university set out to create a new vision for this, and we created what we called the Learning Commons. And so took all the stacks out, the books, many of them were reconsolidated, and created this environment, which again was all about connection, about students being able to work together, to do group projects together, and you can see in what is a very small space the kind of diversity of uses, and how people, they find their way even in an open environment like this because of the diversity of functions, to be able to do both private work and group work, and have a coffee as well. A lot of this, because of the nature of the School of Hospitality, naturally had a hospitality quality to it. One of which was a fun thing, which was the librarian. Not sure exactly how to say that in Hebrew, but the librarian who was very afraid that they were going to lose their job once all the books went out. The librarian was actually transformed into an information barista, and so they not only were able to provide knowledge, but they also made a really good cup of coffee. Continuing in New York, this is a project just completed in downtown Brooklyn. Really interesting part of the neighborhood where, fun name, it's called Rambo, and it's where downtown Brooklyn and Dumbo and Brooklyn Heights all come together. The project it's a mixed-use project. It's residential and office. What we're particularly excited about is that so in New York is that when you provide in certain locations open space that are public, is that you get development bonuses for it. So in this case, the developer was able to do that, and it was really win-win because of its location in the city, was really able to provide an open space that was accessible by everyone. Very often, residential development, these are beautiful projects, but they're beautiful for the people that actually are, fortunate enough to be able to afford to live there. So in this case, the open space was designed for the public. And as well is that the top of the building, which in most cases would really attract the highest rents, here the owner actually gave it again towards a common use. And so this is this amenity space that's available for everyone's use, and really about being able to enjoy these incredible views across the city. This is a project also in Manhattan called Gramercy Square. This is a 400,000 square foot condominium development. Interestingly here is that this was the former home of what was the Cabrini Hospital. And like many businesses, hospitals are also going through serious transformation and trying to find their way within the world of healthcare. This was a hospital complex that had been built over nearly 100 years. This is on 18th and 19th Street in Manhattan. And so the hospital was actually owned ultimately by Memorial Sloan Kettering, and they sold it to a private developer. So the building was on the left, you can see, was a kind of interconnected, in this case connected, not a good thing, interconnected kind of mess of buildings that had been built over centuries. Kind of the worst of which was a bad 1970s tower, which had a very kind of unfriendly quality towards as architecture towards the neighborhood. So in working with the city, because the city was really interested in the success of this project, is that interestingly enough, again for the kind of real estate folks, is that if you were to take down the existing building and start over, you could only have the development rights to rebuild half of it. And so what we did here was we worked with the city in order to take the existing area but reconfigure it. And so on the left is in red are the portions of the building that were taken down. On the right in the blue is how that area was redistributed. And importantly is that in doing that is that we were able to create the central courtyard. And again, creating now a space for people and a not only a great amenity visually, but also space of recreation and contemplation. So you can start to see here how that transformation of these underutilized spaces really became envisioned for these new uses and some of the qualities of that green space. So also in New York, a project, this is on John Street, which is in Lower Manhattan. Interestingly here, the project was conceived as a collaborative hotel. The owner, who came from South America, who spoke Spanish, called it a cotel. And it was always interesting to me when he called it a cotel, is that didn't quite understand a broader meaning of cotel, how that translates certainly into this market. So I thought, wow, this is what an incredible branding opportunity. So here, this was an existing office building that had kind of fallen under tough times, and again, the owner here was creating this concept around a collaborative hotel. Now, what does that mean? It was both providing digital connectivity, at the same time providing physical space to bring those relationships together. So this was targeted towards, for example, people who might be coming to New York for a fashion show, and so therefore could connect with like-minded colleagues. And this becomes a place really to take the digital connection and make it physical. So as an existing building, again, start to peel back the layers of this, opportunities really to create these kind of amazing series of spaces. The room types here, and again, you talk about connected spaces, so this was intended really to be able to transform over the course of the day. And so again, as a connector space, the room, which used to be a place largely for an individual or to kind of put their head at night, in many cases today is a place of business. And so the opportunity to be able to do work, to be social, also to get a good night's sleep within the recently did a series of fun projects at the South Street Seaport, and these were a series of kiosks that were designed to be these kind of urban follies. And for those of you that have been to the Seaport recently, they've really done some really amazing transformations of the former Seaport. At the same time, because the neighborhood is still in transformation, is really the owner's interest in activating the streets. So we designed a series of these kiosks. They were CNC milled in a factory in Brooklyn. They were then transported onto site, and within a matter of weeks, really became these great follies in the city. And I have to say, is particularly the image on the right. Kind of love how people find their way to interact with these kinds of uses. So again, people architecture. This is a project in Singapore, and it's a very interesting project, which is in the world of Alibaba and Amazon deliveries. Is many parts of the world, the question of physical retail is really a question mark. A lot of owners, developers are really trying to figure out what the future holds. And so this project was one that was designed in order to take the digital, but make it physical. And so while anyone on their fingertips can order stuff, what really makes this unique is the social connection, is the opportunity to engage with perhaps the people that even designed it, to be able to talk you through its inspiration, as well as this is hyper mixed use. And so in addition to the retail, there's heavy food and beverage, which is integrated, as well as office functions. So it's, rather than what is thought of as a traditional mall, this is really something that is 24-hour in its use. Finally is a project which is called Tonsley Park. Very interesting proposition, which was 61 acres of what was the former Mitsubishi car manufacturing plant. And as industry moved away, the city was really trying to evaluate what could be a next generation. And so what was this abandoned plant was transformed by the municipality into this innovation hub. And what it did was, this was really intended to bring together talent, talent of young people, of innovators, of thinkers, of researchers, and at the same time be highly connected to the community that it sat in. So within relatively modest means, was able to take that abandoned plant and transform it really into this really wonderful series of civic spaces. So as you can see, people architecture. You can see the diversity of ages and uses, and children and adults and people having a drink. Where there's a place where science is on display, and where the innovators and the thinkers who are making stuff will come out on a weekend and show kids how to use this cool kind of robot thing. And also to be able to host events and conferences and again bring together people. So really wanted to now bring this certainly closer to your home. I'd like to say it feels like my home as well. And so, if you look back at the kibbutz as a place that was really foundational in terms of the creation of community, about social values, to markets, urban markets like Machane Yehuda, which is transforms during the course of the day, from these be able to buy your fruits and vegetables in the morning and get really cool drinks at night, and again those kinds of social urban connector spaces that this country really does so well in the quality of those public spaces. And so I really see Israel as an extraordinary opportunity for what you all do so naturally, which is creating community, creating connection, incredible public space, and seeing the value in public space. And so with that, I think that there's the extraordinary opportunity for Israel to be real leaders in the creation of connected spaces. So with that, really look with you to build together for an extraordinary future ahead. So, if I just in the spirit of connection, I do want to really say a big thank you to Eran and Adi and Carmel and Donna. These already feel like family, and so with that have brought together this amazing event. You can imagine all the hard work and planning and strategy that goes into it, and ultimately it's about this. It's about people and about coming together. So for that, I feel extraordinarily proud and to see it and to be a part of it. So thank you and toda rabah.